Hi, welcome to Kate's Paper Creations. I am Kate, a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Washington State, and I welcome you to my weekly current catalog, video, and blog for Stampin' Up! I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, as I said, and I sell the products that I feature in my videos, and I would love to have you shop with me. There is a link to my store in the description below. So today I am I am making a current card using the Gift of Hope stamp set. Easter's coming, and Easter means a lot to me, and so I like to have a few cards to send out to various people. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. So I am using the Gift of Hope stamp set. I will also be using the Stitched with Whimsey dies. These dies create a stitched edge, but they do not cut out. They just make a stitched edging that you can put on your pieces. And I will be using, for colors, I will be stamping the main piece with the Memento Tuxedo Black. And then I'm going to be coloring with Calypso Coral, Old Olive, and Daffodil Delight markers. Let's get started. So this is the card that I made today, and with just a couple little changes that you will see. Okay, so I'm starting with just a base card of basic white thick. That is 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4, and burnished so that it will fold nicely. And it's going to be a top fold card. Now the first layer is from In Good Taste Designer Series paper, and it is this beautiful blue plaster type background with the shades of blue in it. And what I have done, because I am going to be taking this white piece and covering up the bulk of the front of the card, here's a tip for you. I know that this will work with that, and I didn't want to waste this paper, so I used my stitched shape framelits, and I took the center out with that, and I used, let's see, this was originally 5.5 by 4 1/4 because it's going to cover the entire front of the card. And so then I took these stitch shaped dies and I cut the second largest out of the center. So that creates a stitched shaped piece here that I can use for another card and not be wasteful of my paper. Okay, so there's a little tip for you for the day. And this is going to just get attached flat onto the front of the card, just like this. And unbury my adhesive. It's a sticking to me. And I did my best to center this cut out, but it doesn't have to be perfect because when we cover it up, it's not going to matter. All that matters is that the edges line up. Just like that. So there's the front of the card. Now, I took the Whisper white piece, and this is a piece I cut about 5 3/4, 5.5 would have been good enough by 4 1/4. And I used this Stitched with Whimsy die, and I used the largest one on here like this, and it created that lovely stitched edge. And what I am going to do, here's another little trick of something you could do, is I cut around that stitched edge, just leaving a little tiny white edge, you know, just a little bit whiter than the stitching marks. And I just went all the way around with that and cut that down so it actually adds a little more shape to this piece rather than it just being square, which I kind of wanted. I didn't, you know, I could have cut it smaller and used, I just didn't want to do that. So I wanted this to have some shape as well. And just by following those stitch marks, you can get that. And I'm just going to do that real quick. I wanted to be able to show you, I try very hard in all of my videos to share some kind of a tip or trick about using the products so that you can think about using them in a way that's different than what, you know, the obvious way is. And so that's what I try to do, and that's what this is about. It's just showing you that we can create just a little bit different look using the same dies, even though they don't cut out like I was kind of hoping they would. But you know, it's funny because we always seem to want to have our more dies, or dies that do more than what we think. You know, it's just we're never satisfied. We always want to change it up. So anyway, that's what we do. That's what creativity is all about. I'm sure the designers at Stampin' Up! Could never come up with all of the ideas that we come up with when this product comes out. They probably go, oh, why didn't we think of that? So then this is going to go on here like this, and as you can see, it covers up that cutout which we used to save the paper. Now, I colored these with regular markers. I used Old Olive, and I did use the fine tip end, and I did draw the lines as well. And I did some of them ahead of time, but I did do this like this so that there'd be just a little bit of color showing around the stems, and then we'll color the leaves. And you wouldn't have to color those stems. You could leave them just black and they would look fine. I just wanted that hint of green around them. And so that's what I did. Again, that's a personal preference kind of thing. So then I'm just coloring in those leaves and get those done, and then we'll move on to the flowers. I should have colored some of them ahead of time as well, but it's a fairly quick video anyway. Try not to make them too awfully lengthy. Okay, then the small flowers I colored with the Daffodil Delight. And I'm using the fine tip end because these are pretty small little flowers, and so they're a little bit hard to color with that large brush tip. And we'll have those done here in just a minute or less. I do hope that you'll subscribe to my channel, and I do hope that you will share these videos with others so that they can see the tips and tricks that I share. I love to share what I do, and I don't mind being cased and copied. I do appreciate an occasional acknowledgement of where you saw the original. I try very hard not to ever post something and call it original when it's not. So when you see a current catalog video, that's going to be because I have done my best to make it a card that is original to me. Okay, and now I'm using the Calypso Coral, and on this one I am using the brush end. These flowers are a little bit bigger, so they're a little bit easier to color with the brush tip. And we'll get those colored in here as well. And we're almost there. Then we'll do the finishing touches. I have another video up using this set where I cased the catalog, and I believe it's coming up in a couple of days. So if you've liked this video, I encourage you to subscribe so you won't miss out on future videos with future tips and tricks and alternative ways to use your products to make something special. And there we go. It is colored. Okay, now we're going to add I'm going to add the words next. And I started with the word Easter down here at the bottom. It's going to be stamped with Memento Tuxedo. Oh, and that's what I stamped the original with as well, is Tuxedo Black. Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And I'm using it again here for the word Easter. It's getting a little bit goobered here. There we go. And I'm doing the word Easter first because it needs to be down towards the bottom, and it's going to affect the spacing of where I place the little church and everything else. So I am stamping it next. Just like that. And then I have a church here somewhere. There it is. I stamped this church with Misty Moonlight. And in my other video, I give you a little tip on how to cut this out so that it's not so tricky to cut out the top steeple part. So be sure and check that out in my other video. And this church is just going to go right here in the center with dimensionals eventually. But I'm just going to dry fit it there so that I know where to stamp the sentiment, the rest of the sentiment, wishing you the blessings of. And that looks good. So that gives me some idea of placement for this. Just like that. Now I'm going to attach the church with dimensionals. And I'm using minis. And just putting 4 of those on here. Oops, get it down where it doesn't show. There we go. That's that part. And then for the steeple, I just need a little tiny skinny piece to put on the steeple. So I'm cutting up the edge of this dimensional to just get a short piece that's really narrow that I can support that steeple with. And we'll put that on right there. And then we can place that right in the center like that. Okay, now this piece I also attached with dimensionals. And so we will put some big ones in the corners. And because this is such a large piece, I'm going to put some extras on it. I think that's enough. And then this is just going to get centered onto the front of the card, like this. And there it is. For this one I stamped the church in black, and then this one I stamped it with the blue. I like the Misty Moonlight color much better than the other. So there is today's card. Now, I don't know if I actually told you, but this piece of basic white, I cut it 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 to start with, and then did the embossing, and then, or the die cutting, and then I cut it out after that to cut it down to the size that I needed it for the front of the card. So there you go, and this was just a piece of scrap white, of course. And I hope you enjoyed today's video. I thank you for stopping by.